Hello students, we all have seen elephants. What is the most distinct feature of an elephant? Its long and strong trunk, right? But have you ever wondered, how did elephant get its nose? Let's read in the story Golu Grows a Nose by Rudyard Kipling. It's chapter 5 of class 7 supplementary book, An Alien Hand. In this part we will study that there was a time when the elephant had no trunk. Golu, a baby elephant with a bulgy nose, is full of questions. He goes to the Limpopo River to find out more about the crocodile's eating habit. So Golu was a baby elephant with a bulgy nose. Bulgy means swollen or curving outward. That means he had a round nose, not like long nose of present time. So it was the time when elephant had no trunk. And Golu was very curious, inquisitive baby. He was full of questions. He once goes to Limpopo River to find out more about crocodiles' eating habits. What do crocodiles eat? Long ago, the elephant had no trunk. He had only a bulgy nose, as big as a boot. He could wiggle it from side to side, but couldn't pick up things with it. Wiggle means move from side to side. So long time ago, elephant did not have trunk. They had bulgy nose like that of a boot. And he couldn't pick things from its nose. He could only move it from side to side. There was a baby elephant called Golu. He too had no trunk but only a bulgy nose as small as a small boot. Golu was full of questions. He asked his tall aunt, the ostrich, "Why don't you ever fly like?" So Golu was a baby elephant. He also didn't have a trunk but a small bulgy nose like that of a small boot. And Golu was very curious. He was full of questions. He used to ask many questions. To his tall aunt ostrich, he asked, "Why don't you ever fly like other birds?" Then he asked his tall uncle, the giraffe. To giraffe, he asked, "What makes your skin so spotty?" There are spots on the skin of giraffe, so he asked the same question. He asked his huge uncle, the hippopotamus, "Why are your eyes always so red?" He asked his hairy uncle, the baboon. Baboon is a hairy animal. So he asked baboon, "Why do melons taste like melons?" The ostrich, the giraffe, the hippopotamus and the baboon had no answer to Golu's questions. Golu is a naughty baby, they said. He asked such difficult questions. So these animals, these uncles and aunts had no answer to Golu's question, and they would just say that Golu is a naughty baby. He asked such difficult questions. One day, Golu met the Mena bird sitting in the middle of a bush, and he asked her, "What does the crocodile have for dinner?" The Mena said, "Go to the banks of the great grassy Limpopo River and find out." So one day he met Mena, who was sitting in the middle of bushes, in the middle of small grasses. And to Mena he asked, "What does crocodile have for dinner? What do crocodile eat for dinner?" On that Mena replied, "Go to banks of great grassy Limpopo River. Go to the corner bank of the Limpopo River and find out yourself." Golu went home. He took 100 sugar canes, 50 dozen bananas, 25 melons. Then he said to his family, "Goodbye, I'm going to the great grassy Limpopo River. I will find out what the crocodile has for dinner." He had never seen a crocodile and didn't know what one looked like. So after hearing from Mena, Golu set up for Limpopo River. He packed his food. As we know, elephant eat a lot. So he packed a lot of stuff and then he bid goodbye to his family and told them that, "I'm going to the great grassy Limpopo River to find out what does crocodile eat for dinner." He met a python and asked him, "Have you ever seen a crocodile? What does he look like? What does he have for dinner?" So on the way he met a python, a big snake. And he asked him about crocodile, that what do they look like? Have you ever seen them? What do they eat for dinner? The python uncoiled himself from the branch of tree but said nothing. Golu politely helped him to coil around the branch again and said goodbye. So python did not reply. He just uncoiled. Uncoil means straighten, unroll himself from the branch of the tree. He was rolled around the branch of the tree. He unrolled. So but python said nothing. So Golu helped him to coil again and then said goodbye to him. Now in the second part we will read Golu meets the crocodile face to face. He gets the python's help when he needs it most. Golu grows a long and useful nose. So he met the crocodile and Python helped Golu in something. We will see what was it, why did Python help him. And then finally Golu grows a long and useful nose. Let's read. Golu moved on, eating sugar canes, bananas, melons. After a few days, he reached the very edge of the great grassy Limpopo River. On the bank of river, he saw a log of wood. So after many days, he finally reached the Limpopo River. On the way, he kept eating the things he had packed for himself. And when he finally reached the bank of Limpopo River, he saw that there was a log of wood. It was really the crocodile who winked at him. "Excuse me," said Golu. "Have you ever seen a crocodile?" So if you have seen a crocodile hardly moves. It doesn't move for a long time. So it was appearing like a log of wood, but actually it was a crocodile who winked at Golu. And then Golu asked, "Have you ever seen a crocodile?" The crocodile winked again and lifted half his tail out of the mud. "Come here, little one," said the crocodile. "Why do you ask such questions?" So crocodile winked from his eyes again, and then he told Golu to come near and asked, "Why do you ask such questions?" "I want to know." "Come close, little one, for I am the crocodile." And he shed crocodile tears to show it was quite true. Then crocodile said, "I am the crocodile," and then he shed crocodile tears. To shed crocodile tears means to cry in a fake way. When somebody says what he doesn't actually mean and cries for it, it is said shedding crocodile tear. So he made a fake cry and called Golu to prove that he was actually true. Golu was afraid, but he sat down on the bank and said, "You are the very person I was looking for. Please tell me, what do you have for dinner?" Then he was afraid, but still he sat at the bank of the river and said, "Yeah, you are the person that I was looking for," and then asked his question, "What do you have for dinner?" "Come here, little one. I will whisper the answer to you," said the crocodile. Golu put his head down close to crocodile's snout, and the crocodile caught him by the nose. So crocodile called him near. Golu was though scared, but he went close to crocodile's snout. Snout is mouth and nose area of an elephant. So Golu went close to crocodile's snout, and there crocodile caught him by his nose. He caught Golu's nose in his mouth. "I think," said the crocodile, "today a baby elephant will be my dinner." "Let me go, you are hurting me, Mr. Crocodile," screamed Golu. So he caught crocodile by his nose and said that today I will have a baby elephant for my dinner. And there Golu was screaming, he was shouting, "Let me go, you are hurting me." The python, who had been quietly following Golu, came to the bank and said, "If you do not pull as hard as you can, the crocodile will drag you into the stream." Now Python, to whom Golu met on the way, Python didn't say anything to Golu, but he very quietly followed him. And then he said to Golu, when he saw that crocodile had caught Golu, he said, "If you don't pull your best, if you don't pull hard, this crocodile will drag you into the stream, into the water." Golu sat back on his little haunches and pulled and pulled. So Golu sat on his back legs and he pulled and pulled. The crocodile slipped into water, making it all creamy with great sweeps of his tail. And he also pulled and pulled. And crocodile also slipped into water. He went into the water, making it fourthy and creamy. And he also pulled. He was not ready to leave Golu. Then the python coiled himself around Golu's stomach and said, "Let's pull harder." Golu dug in all his four legs in the mud and pulled. Then python also rolled himself around Golu's tummy, around Golu's stomach, and python also pulled. And Golu also made his legs firm in the mud and he pulled. The nose kept on stretching. Since the crocodile had caught Golu by his nose, the nose kept on stretching. At each pull, the nose grew longer and longer and it hurt Golu. So it was being pulled. The nose was being pulled from opposite side. From one side, crocodile was pulling it. From other side, Golu and python were pulling it. So the nose kept stretching and it was hurting Golu, and the nose was growing longer and longer. The nose was now 5 feet long, but it was free at last. So finally the nose was as long as 5 feet, and finally Golu was also free. Golu sat down with his nose wrapped up in a big banana leaf and hung it in the great grassy Limpopo river to cool. So now Golu sat at the bank of a river and his nose was wrapped. It was covered with a big banana leaf, and he has put his nose in the river, in the Limpopo river, in the water to cool it down. Golu sat there for 2 days waiting for his nose to cool and to shrink. It grew cool, but it didn't shrink. So Golu actually sat in that position on the bank of river, keeping his nose in the river to cool it down. It cooled, but it did not shrink. Now Golu had a long nose. At the end of the second day, a fly came and stung Golu on the shoulder. Golu lifted his nose, which was now shrunk, and with it hit the fly, dead. So by the end of second day, a fly came and it stung Golu on the shoulder. And what did Golu do? He lifted his nose and hit that fly with his long nose, with his trunk, and the fly was dead. Advantage number 1, hissed the python. You couldn't have done it with a small nose. Try and eat a little now. So seeing this, the python said, see, this is an advantage. This is an advantage that you have hit the fly with your long nose, and you couldn't have done it with your small and bulgy nose. Then he said, try to eat a little now. Golu put out his trunk and plucked a large bundle of grass. He dusted it against his forelegs and stuffed it into his mouth. So for eating, Golu plucked a large bundle of grass, plucked some grass, and he patted it, dusted it on the ground in front of his forelegs, and then stuffed it in his mouth, put it in his mouth. Advantage number 2, hissed the python. You couldn't have done it with a small nose. Don't you think the sun is too hot now? So then seeing this, the python said, now this is advantage number 2, that you can pluck grass and stuff it in your mouth. You couldn't have done it with a small nose. Then he said, don't you think the sun is too hot? Golu scooped up some mud from the bank and slapped it on his head. So from the bank he scooped, that means he took some mud in his nose and he threw it on his head. Advantage number 3, hissed the python. You couldn't have done it with a small nose. Then python said, this is advantage number 3. You couldn't have filled your nose with cool mud and put it on yourself. Thank you, Mr. Python, said Golu gratefully. I'll remember all this and now I'll go back to my family. So Golu thanked Python that he has counted the advantage of his nose. He has told him the advantage of his nose, and Golu said, I will remember it. And then he said, I will go back to my family now. So this is a fictional and entertaining story by Rudyard Kipling. Rudyard Kipling writes a children's book for children, and The Jungle Book is his most famous story, the story of Mowgli. You all must have read it. Wasn't this chapter funny and entertaining? Now let's see some question answers. Whom does Golu ask, why don't you ever fly like other birds? To his aunt, ostrich. Which uncle of Golu had red eyes? The hippopotamus. Golu's relative did not answer his question because, as per them, the questions were too difficult, right? Who advised Golu to go to Limpopo River? The Mena. Why did Golu go to Limpopo River? To ask the crocodile, what does he eat for dinner? The crocodile lay on the bank of Limpopo River. Golu initially thought it was a log of wood. What did crocodile do to show it was a real crocodile? What does crocodile do? He shed his tears. He shed crocodile tears. Come here, little one, and I'll whisper the answer to you. The crocodile said this because he wanted to eat Golu. Who helped Golu on the bank of the river? The python. Name 2 things the elephant can do with his trunk and 2 he cannot. So I have mentioned 3 things he can do with his trunk. He can keep away the flies, he can splash water, he can pull things to his mouth. Now you have to write in the comment 2 things that elephant cannot do with its trunk. So this was about the chapter Golu Grows a Nose. Students, thank you for listening. Bye bye. Take care. I will see you in my next video.